Hey everybody, it's me, the Real Kid BC. And they say that imitation is the greatest form of flattery, but there are times where that isn't always true. Today I'm actually going to be talking about copycats. Um, I'm sure you figured that out already just from me saying that. Um, but yeah, um, copycats always pop up whenever something gets popular. It's unavoidable. It's inevitable, one might say, and it is because they pop up in pretty much every genre and every medium. It's hard to avoid a copycat because everybody's always trying to ride someone's coattails the minute they get popular and the minute they get an insane amount of success and fame and money. So, yeah, it's annoying, but what are you gonna do? Though there are some copycats that aren't really necessarily bad, right? Even if they can't necessarily match up to the original, they're not really bad. They're just not as good as the original. Though there are a few copycats that are better than the original, but those are rarer. Um, but usually copycats end up being blatant ripoffs of the original, and because of this, copycats have a negative connotation to it. Even if there are a couple positive aspects to being a copycat, um, to me, being a copycat is just a thing. It can be good, it can be bad, and maybe even somewhere in the middle. But um, that doesn't automatically mean that being a copycat is a bad thing. In my eyes, anyway. You may think differently, and that's fine. Um, as we all know, some of the biggest properties, no matter the medium, have always had copycats. Just look at Star Wars. When Star Wars got popular, everybody started doing space movies. You couldn't avoid them. They were all over the place. It was insane. So, yeah. Of course, Star Wars is only one of the best and bigger examples of this. There are many others. Like, honestly, um, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. That's another obvious one. When Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles got popular, a bunch of people tried to copy off of them. Hence why people like the Street Sharks exist, or even the Cowboys of Moo Mesa. And I'm sure most of you have never heard about the Cowboys of Moo Mesa, so Diego, please put a picture on screen of them. Um, anyway, uh, the Battletoads are the most notable copycats of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because of how successful they are. Um, Sure, they never became quite as successful as the Turtles, but they're still decently popular, and they managed to get a decent amount of success. Heck, they're still around even now, so yeah. I mean, they're not necessarily a failure, and besides, I think the Battletoads were inspired by the Turtles. They weren't trying to rip them off, that's the difference. Um, really, the problem with copycats is that half the time the people aren't very original and just end up creating a blatant copy of the original and only sometimes actually create something that's wholly unique. One of the best examples of creating something wholly unique from uh, the original, even if you are perceived as a copycat, is Shazam or Captain Marvel from DC. He used to be owned by Wiz Comics, if I remember correctly, back in the day, because he wasn't always owned by DC. Yeah, that's the thing. Shazam wasn't always owned by DC. He didn't get bought by DC until later. But he was created by Wiz Comics originally, and he was a copycat of Superman, which is hard to believe now because, as it turns out, Shazam flew before Superman because before that, Superman could only leap tall buildings and stuff. Yeah, he could only leap tall mounds. It wasn't until Shazam came along that DC were like, that's a good idea. We should have Superman fly, and then they did. And obviously, it seems ridiculous to say that Shazam is a Superman copycat when he's clearly not. And that's the thing. Shazam isn't an inherent copycat of Superman. Um, he seems like the type of character that was more so inspired by Superman, if we're being honest here. But I wouldn't categorize him as necessarily a copycat, but I would say that clearly the writers were trying to copy off of Superman, but they actually did something original with him, um, obviously. So, yeah. And there's a fine line to walk when it comes to being original. And these days, people have said more often than not that it's incredibly hard to be original because everything is already done. And that's true for the most part. Sure, there are a couple original ideas here and there, and sometimes they get popular, sometimes they don't. It really depends. Um, but being unoriginal isn't always a bad thing necessarily. Sometimes it's just paying homage to the original or doing your own version of the original, but with your own spin. And I like it when people do that, when they do something that's not really original, but they put an original spin on it and make it different and make it more unique. Um, and they branch out. Ironically, this also spawns copycats, because of course it does. Because that unoriginal thing that has a new twist will then be be copied by everybody else the minute it gets popular. It's a vicious cycle. I know, I understand. Um, but I don't really hate copycats. In my opinion, sometimes copycats are good, sometimes they're bad, and sometimes they're mediocre or meh at best. And sometimes they can actually have a nice and original twist to an unoriginal idea. Um, and sometimes they can even be better than the original. Sometimes. Uh, but yeah, honestly, that's just how I see it. Um, honestly, that's all I got for today. Um, if you guys have any copycats that you like, then please say so in the comments. What are your views on copycats? Do you think they're good? Do you think they're bad? Do you think that they're really just a thing that happens and we shouldn't try to avoid it because, well, that's just not a good idea? um, please let me know in the comments. Also, I said this before and I'll say it again, but I've been doing community posts. And I know it's been a while since I said this, but I have been doing community posts. And I would like it if more people could get in on that. If more people could comment on a community post more often, that'd be really good. Um, and of course, all the important stuff is in the description. Please do not forget to check it. And if you want more of me, then you know exactly what to do. I won't hold your hand through the process. Real King out. Have a nice day, people.